UFC Fight Night Vegas 43 Vieira versus Tate takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main events, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card. Now, I know the main event is not the best main event in the world, but this card has some really fun matchups on it, up and down the card. Let's start straight away with the early prelim opener of Luana Pinheiro versus Sam Hughes. Decent matchup in the strawweight division to start things off. I am going to be going with Luana Pinheiro here. Sam Hughes just has not looked impressive in her UFC fights so far. I know it's been hard for her to look impressive because she's taken on Loma Lookboonme, who beat her up over 3 rounds and won it very clearly there, and also she started her debut against Tisha Torres, so to be fair to her, it's really hard to look impressive against that level of competition in the women's strawweight division. Those are some of the 2 better strawweights on the roster that she's taken on in her debut fights. Now she's got Luana Pinheiro, which is actually a decent matchup for her, but Luana Pinheiro's a weird one because she got up-kicked by Randa Marcos and faked going out cold completely. But no one really had an uproar about it because she's female. But still, like, she was winning that fight very dominantly. She was taking down Randa Marcos with ease. And watching Randa Marcos actually out-grapple living her Hinata Souza recently and do well on the ground with her, and even out-grapple other opponents in certain moments in the fight, Luana Pinheiro being able to completely ragdoll her and outstrike her on the feet in the early round, it does really look quite good. I know Randa Marcos is absolutely terrible and is currently 11-12 and now cut from the UFC, even though she won her last fight, which is hilarious in many ways. She's quite good for women's divisions. So it's interesting to see Luana Pinheiro just easily out-grapple her in the first round, take her down 5 times out of 6, basically toss her around like she was nothing in the women's strawweight division. Then she got up-kicked and just decided that was enough. I'm bored of beating up Randa Marcos. I'm going to fake going out cold, which was very weird, but Luana Pinheiro got the win there. I am going to be picking her against Sam Hughes. She showed great grappling. Sam Hughes is sort of a grappling-heavy style, but she hasn't really been able to get it going so far in her career and hasn't been able to do too much on the feet either. I'm going to go with Luana Pinheiro, winning this one on the feet, winning it in the grappling and getting the job done by unanimous decision or something like that. Moving on up the card, so another fight, Shayilan versus Sean Soriano. Shayilan is such a weird name to say, but I'm going to be going with Shayilan. Why can't I say that? Shayilan. I'm going with him. He's the younger guy, 27. I think he's going to go at an out-grappled Sean Soriano pretty reasonably. Sean Soriano's had the same problem his entire career, being out-grappled over and over again. And I want to mention one thing as well. The one fight that he won on the regional scene that got him back into the UFC was against a guy who I don't really have too much respect for because he was an older guy who's been around the block, who took on a bunch of cans. Noah Lahat was his name. He's 13-5 now. He's 37 now as well. And he just has beat a bunch of cans, 11-6, 11-5, 11-8, 15-5. Like, not too many great wins. And any good opponent that he takes on, 6-0, 13-3, 8-1, they take him to either a close decision or they beat him quite convincingly as well. I'm still going to be going with Shayilan Neurdanbieke, which they haven't even decided to include on the UFC schedule, so I've only just learned that's the rest of his name. I'm going to be going with him. I'm really going to be picking him here. I think he'll go out there and out-grapple Sean Soriano. He is a heavy grappler. He's got a lot of submission wins. He's beat some decent opponents here and there, but not too many of them, and he's lost some fights as well, but he's the younger guy. He was doing okay in the first round against Qileng. He's a very strong man for the division, and he can grapple quite well, and I'm going to pick him to out-grapple Sean Soriano in this fight and win it by unanimous decision, winning the first 2 rounds, losing the 3rd round. I'm going to bet against Sean Soriano because I think his time is kind of done and I can see him fading a little bit, whereas Shayilan is still a young guy on the come-up that can make improvements, and he did take that Qileng fight on short notice, I believe, as well, so it does explain the slowing down, but he's strong in the clinch. He's got great grappling there for at least a round. He's got good power on the feet for a round as well. And I'm going to pick him to beat Sean Soriano in an upset. Shayilan gets it done. Moving on up the card, Cody Durden versus Aori Qileng. I'm going to go with Cody Durden here over Aori Qileng. Aori Qileng is a very good fighter. Showed a lot of toughness in his last fight against Jeff Molina, especially in that 3rd round to bounce back and I believe knock down Jeff Molina or rock him really badly in that 3rd round, but he still lost. I'm going to go with Cody Durden here. Cody Durden has had performances against opponents that have aged really well, like his main performance against Chris Gutierrez by draw. Very good performance by him there. Lost a fight, in my opinion. Shouldn't have got a 10-8 in the first round, but arguably should have got a 10-8 in the first round because he was trying for the choke the entire way through that first round. Had the back of his opponent. It was just a weird thing at the time because we just watched James Krause lose the first round to Trevin Giles when he had his back for 4 minutes. But then they watch Cody Durden get a 10-8 round for having Chris Gutierrez's back for 4 minutes. But he was trying a lot of submission attempts on Chris Gutierrez. He showed great grappling in the early rounds. And I feel like the grappling is going to be a problem for Qileng Aori, who's a great striker, who's got potential on the feet. Not too amazing on the feet, let's be honest. And also, you got to mention that Cody Durden was looking real good against Jimmy Flick before being put in that flying triangle. And it is a flying triangle out of nowhere. It's not like Jimmy Flick was just beating him that entire fight and then putting the submission whenever he wanted. Cody Durden was winning that fight on the feet very convincingly. He got caught in a flying triangle out of nowhere. Sometimes shit happens in MMA. I'm going to go with Cody Durden out-grappling Aori Qileng, who's been out-grappled before in his career. And I'm going to pick against him here. Been choked out in his career a couple of times as well. I'm definitely going to be going with Cody Durden out-grappling Aori Qileng. Doing okay with him on the feet as well. And winning this one by a close, unanimous decision. 29-28, Cody Durden. Moving on up the card. Terrance McKinney versus Ziam. I'm going with Terrance McKinney here. I think he wins this one. Again, by decision. I don't think there's going to be a lot of finishes this card. I think we were spoiled for finishes in last card, which there was just basically, I believe, a finish every fight until the main event, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm going with Terrance McKinney. I think the main difference is the power in this fight. They're both pretty good on the feet. Very technical strikers on the feet. They both got decent cardio as well. They can go 3 rounds. Ziam's close win against Ludwig Klein doesn't really look that good anymore because at the time, I saw Ludwig Klein as this next phenom out of Europe, and now I kind of see Ludwig Klein as some random bum that just isn't really that good and just was beating a bunch of cans, I guess, because he has not looked good in the, UFC. But he does have a win over Jamie Mullarkey. But again, Jamie Mullarkey after that fight visibly changed how good he was. You see in a Don Madge fight that Ziam has that level of opponent that can take him into some deep waters and give him some problems here and there. I'm definitely going to be going with Terrance McKinney. I think the main difference is the power here. Much faster, much more powerful, and I think maybe they're going to have a close striking match with each other while it lasts, but McKinney will drop him in round 1, drop him in round 2, land big shots and wobble him in a round as well. I think it's going to be like a very even striking match. Neither guy is going to really want to grapple too much. It's going to be like a slow-paced but technical and decent-to-watch striking match where McKinney just has the bigger moments because he just has way more power than Ziam, who doesn't really have too much power whatsoever, and I think that'll be the difference. Terrance McKinney gets this done, and I think he's looking good in the UFC as well because he starts real fast. There is always that chance that Ziam gets KO'd in the first round, and I think Ziam's going to fight under that awareness. We just saw this with Miguel Beza and Chaos Williams, how much Miguel Beza was just terrified moving around the outside because of the power his opponent has. Terrance McKinney's got crazy power. I'd like to see him get it done against Ziam, and I think he will get it done with the power over the distance, though. I don't think he gets a finish. I think Ziam stays in there, but gets dropped, rocked a couple of times, but stays a competitive fight throughout the course. Terrance McKinney gets it done. Moving on up the card, Loma Lookboonme versus Lupita Godinez. Now, I respect Lupita Godinez because she's the female BMF. She's stepping up weekend after weekend. Doesn't matter if I just lost 2 weekends ago. I'm stepping up for this one as well against a tough opponent in Loma Lookboonme. I think she realizes that she wants to get paid, and this is what you see a lot of men complain about in the UFC and a lot of women complain about, that they don't get paid enough money. Lupita Godinez says, fuck that, I'm here to fight every weekend. I'll be getting paid a shit ton of money for this. I don't know why she's taking a fight with Loma Lookboonme, though, because Loma Lookboonme's going to beat her. She's going to beat her by decision, 30-27, maybe 29-28 if Lupita wins the first round, but Loma's shown great takedown defense in her career. She's shown improved takedown defense as well in her career. Very technical in her defense. She knows when to get underhooked. She just does the basic fundamental things to stop takedowns occurring very well, and Lupita Godinez pushes you to the cage, shoots from there. She got caught up a lot in her last fight against Luana Carolina, diving for a double leg and getting caught up in the clinch and getting kneed a couple of times to the body. If you know about Loma Lookboonme, she's basically made a career off of stuffing against a cage, winning in the clinch over unders, and then landing knees to the body. I think this is a no-brainer. Loma Lookboonme's going to go out there, stuff the takedowns early, land the knees to the body, and then start winning the exchanges on the feet as the fight goes on, because we saw again with Lupita Godinez that she started to slow down in that fight with Luana Carolina as it went on because of the knees to the body. And I just don't like the fact that she's taking them too quickly. I get it, you want to get paid, but there's limits. You got to improve your game. You got to go back and address some things. You clearly couldn't get takedowns against Luana Carolina after the first round. Now you're taking on a better opponent in Loma Lookboonme. I get it was up a division, and Luana Carolina's a flyweight, and it was a bigger woman, but I'm still going with Loma Lookboonme here. I think her takedown defense is good, and I think Loma Lookboonme's going to be a top contender one day. I think one of her losses is to Angela Hill in like a close decision in New Zealand, I believe it was. That's not a bad loss to have as a women's strawweight. That at least tells me that you're close to ranked level already. So I'm definitely going to go with Loma Lookboonme. She's made a career off of stuffing takedowns and kneeing girls to the body. And Lupita lost her last fight by being stuffed for takedowns and getting kneed in the body. So I think it's a no-brainer. Lookboonme gets it done by decision. Moving on up the card, Rafa Garcia versus Natan Levy. I'm going to go with Natan Levy here. I worry about this because Natan Levy's a Kung Fu guy. And when you're a Kung Fu guy, you're a can crusher with a fake belt. Like, it really is a big warning sign when you see these guys like, oh, I'm a karate guy. Oh, yeah, I bet you are, dude. That's typically my reaction when you hear like, oh, I'm in karate and I did kung fu at one point. Oh, you did kung fu? Oh, some old man beat you with a stick in a fucking gymnasium, dude? Like, that's just not even, like, you can get a belt for anything in those kind of martial arts nowadays. It's very watered down, and it's usually a red flag for me when I see a guy doing all those weird drills, breaking the blocks and stuff in their promos on the Contender Series. But I am going to go with Natan Levy. He looked good in the Contender Series, and he took on a bigger opponent as well in Shaheen Santana, who was the undefeated prospect from MMA Masters, which, as we know, is the gym with Miguel Beza, Colby Covington. It's a decent gym, a reputable gym. And they had a good prospect here who beat a 3-0 guy, 3-1 guy on the regional scene, went 6-0, then took on Natan Levy and lost by triangle choke in the third round. And he's a big guy as well, and Natan Levy was a lot smaller than him, so I feel like Natan Levy here is going to have a real good chance against Rafa Garcia, who just lost to Chris Gertschmacher. If he didn't just lose to Chris Gertschmacher, I would maybe understand the idea of an upset, but man, fucking beat Chris Gertschmacher, you disgrace to humanity. He literally was taking a quick notice turnaround after being KO'd by Alexander Hernandez. Beat Chris Gertschmacher, you fucking disgrace to mixed martial arts. I'm not picking Rafa Garcia here. Did not like what I saw. I like the stand-up of Natan Levy. Seems to have some spatial awareness at range on the feet, which I like. Seems very composed out there. And got the job done in his last one against a decent prospect. With his grappling, he's got a chance to mix it up here against Rafa Garcia, who just lost to Chris Gertschmacher. So I'm going with Natan Levy, the 6-0 undefeated prospect, training at a good gym to go out there and get things done. He trains at Syndicate MMA, which is a great gym. So I'm going to trust him to get this one, and I think he'll win it with his grappling and probably get a submission in the later rounds. Natan Levy wins. Moving on up the card, Tucker Lutz versus Pat Sabatini. I'm going with an underdog again with Tucker Lutz here. I'm picking Tucker Lutz to get this one done as an underdog against Pat Sabatini. I like Pat Sabatini. He looked good against Jamal Emmers, but he also got rocked in that early round, and Emmers was like caught up playing 50-50 with a leg lock. Don't be playing those fucking games with Pat Sabatini. That's what he wants in a fight, you absolute moron. But either way, Jamal Emmers was beating the shit out of him in that fight. Beat him down, knocked him down, got on top of him in mount, landed big shots from there, more mount shots again, took mount again, more big shots, rolled for a leg like an idiot, and then got his own leg taken. But I think there's holes in Pat Sabatini's game. He's a good fighter. Don't like his chin. Don't like his range. Don't like his build for the division. I think he's a bit small as well. And I think Tucker Lutz is a solid. He's got good fundamentals. He's got a solid base. He's got strong hips. He's got good takedown defense. He's got good volume. He's got good cardio. He's got a solid chin. He's just a very well-rounded fundamental fighter. And I think Pat Sabatini's going to have trouble taking him down, because even in the third round against Tristan Connolly, he might have lost that round. And in the second round, it was very close as well when he started to maybe like show some signs that he can't keep a good control time with grappling as rounds go on. You got a guy in his prime coming up right now in Tucker Lutz. Didn't win on the first Contender Series, so said, fuck it, I'm coming back for the next one, and won that one instead. I like his attitude. He just beat Kevin Aguilar. Great performance there as well. Took down Kevin Aguilar, who has a great record and is a decent fighter himself. Took down Kevin Aguilar in that fight, showed good offensive grappling, showed good takedown defense in his career so far, stuffed some good takedowns in his career. I'm going to go with Tucker Lutz winning this one by being more fundamentally sound, getting the upset against Pat Sabatini, and also, if that isn't enough for you, he's a little bit bigger, quite a bit bigger, I think, about 2 or 3 pounds, I'd say, and also he's got a reach advantage, 72 to 70 inches. And he's moving down because he's fought at lightweight before in his career. So he is a big guy for the division. He's very solid. And I think he'll push Pat Sabatini in those later 2 rounds and win this one 29-28. I'll say split decision. Pat Sabatini has some control time in the first and wins it. Control time in the second, but Tucker Lutz gets back up and does more damage. The judges are like, do we score damage or control time? Damage is what you score. I think Lutz will do more damage in the second round. And the third round, I think Lutz is going to start to take over, land big shots on the feet, stuff the takedowns easily, and beat him up a little bit. So I'd say 29-28. Split decision or close decision to Tucker Lutz winning this one based on the last 2 rounds. Moving on up the card to the main card. Davey Grant versus Adrian Yanez. I'm going with Adrian Yanez here. I think he wins this one by KO in the first round. I'm going to pick against Davey Grant. Davey Grant is dangerous. It's in his name, Dangerous Davey Grant. But he's open for things. He's very open for things. The way he throws punches, if you don't have the timing of a Yanez, he can get away with throwing those punches on you. You can loop him around. He can land big shots. But even in that first round against Jonathan Martinez, before he got dropped in the second and finished, and Davey Grant came back and won that fight, Martinez was figuring him out, landing good shots on the feet, dropped him at the end of round 1 and started beating him up, but the bell sounded and kind of saved Davey Grant at the bell. I think Adrian Yanez will find those openings. He's got wicked quick hands. He's got a reach advantage here as well. He's got a solid chin and good defense, but he didn't show that against Costa. If he can figure out that situation where he's got to start fast, I think he's going to be a full package in this division. I just think he's going to beat up Davey Grant, land a big shot when he needs to at the end of round 1 and finish him off there. First round TKO for Adrian Yanez. Davey Grant is just too open for stuff, and in his last fight, he took a fucking beating against Marlon Vieira. And for a 35-year-old at bantamweight who's been in many wars in his career, to take a big beating like that at this point and lose all that momentum that he built up in his old age, I'm going to go with Adrian Yanez. It could be tough with the grappling, but I think Yanez has got good grappling defense. He's been training with Aljamain Sterling, and I think that solves 2 things for him. Confidence in grappling, and also confidence to just fight anyone. If you haven't really trained with the best in the world, like Aljamain Sterling, the champion in your division, I know people say he's not the best, because he isn't the best. Piotr Jan's the best bantamweight in the UFC. But he's one of the best. He's been a champion. He is a top dog in the bantamweight division. For Yanez to train with him, it gives him that sort of realization, like, this is normal. I've like entered a sparring session with Aljamain Sterling. I'm not going to be hesitant to take on Davey Grant. You know what I mean? It's not going to be that sort of shocked moment. Oh my God, it's Davey Grant, when you've been training with Aljamain Sterling and defending takedowns against Aljamain Sterling. I think Grant gives him some trouble early on, but Yanez starts to find his range towards the second half of the first round, cracks Grant with a big shot as he loads up, puts him down, finishes him off with ground and pound shots. First round TKO for Adrian Yanez as Grant loads up like a big lunging hook. I think he's going to get caught with a straight right hand of Yanez, put him down softly, and down goes Grant. Moving on. Big win by Yanez in the first round, by the way. Joanne Calderwood versus Taylor Santos. I'm going to go with Joanne Calderwood as an underdog here. Taylor Santos is good. She's not that good, though. I've watched a couple of her fights. I've watched all of her fights. What am I talking about? But I've watched a couple of them back closely. Her stand-up is not that great in certain fights, and she doesn't really dominate girls at a grappling. She did good against Roxanne Modafferi, but Modafferi is fucking done. Let's be real with Modafferi. She's old, she hasn't got a chin anymore, she has no idea what she's doing out there. It shows me that Taylor Santos is training for MMA, the fact that she can beat Roxanne Modafferi. But tough matchup for Joanne Calderwood, but Joanne Calderwood has been in there with the top girls, and she's beaten a lot of them, and maybe got robbed in a lot of those fights as well. She beat Lauren Murphy, in my opinion, very, very clearly in their fight. I also believe that she beat maybe Caitlin Chookagian and had a good fight with her, and that could have gone either way. She beat Andrea Lee, which now looks really good in hindsight as well. Like, Joanne Calderwood's very good. She got caught in that armbar against Jennifer Maia, but I think now she's staying more active and getting in there a bit more. She's getting more comfortable out there, and I swear she beat Caitlin Chookagian. She beat Cynthia Calvillo as well, arguably. And she beat Lauren Murphy in her last fight, and those are all top contenders in the women's flyweight division. I think Taylor Santos is taking a bit of a jump too much. She hasn't shown dominance on the ground against other opponents. Like, I know she took down Molly McCann, but Molly McCann was able to get back up, get back to her knees, get back to her feet, got minorly outworked in that fight in the clinch and got taken down a couple of times, but she got back up. She wasn't, like, beaten up on the ground by Taylor Santos, so I think there's a level of takedown defense that exists currently in the women's flyweight division, sometimes even outside the rankings, like with Molly McCann, that cannot be dominated in the grappling by Taylor Santos, that can get back up to their feet and do well against a cage and get back into the open. I think if other fighters can do that, Joanne Calderwood can do that. She trains at a great gym again, Syndicate MMA on the map. I think she'll win this one. I think she'll win this one against Taylor Santos. She's better on the feet, in my opinion. Much more technical on the feet. I can see her winning this one just by slightly outlanding Taylor Santos every single round, and also landing knees in the clinch as Taylor Santos shoots for takedowns. I'm going with the underdog Joanne Calderwood here. I think she's very underrated, very good, and better than her record suggests, because I think she arguably could have won half of her losses that she's had in her career, and that would make her 18-3. So I'm picking Joanne Calderwood. Better competition, another day in the office for her. I think she stays calm and just minorly outlands Taylor Santos in all 3 rounds to a 30-27 unanimous decision. Moving on up the card, Rani Yahya versus Kyung-Ho. I'm going with Rani Yahya here over Kyung-Ho. Kang is actually his name, as you reverse it around, because they just switch it up for no fucking reason. But either way, Rani Yahya wins this one. Kyung-Ho Kang is a weird one because you never really know, because he actually does have decent grappling and he's shown good takedowns in his fights, but it's just the level of competition that he's taken on in his career and the closeness of that level of competition that he's dealt with that make me worry about him in this Rani Yahya matchup. Rani Yahya has had his loss to Ricky Simone, you know what I mean? And Kyung-Ho Kang is good, and he had a split decision with Ricardo Ramos, but he's getting older, he's not active, he hasn't fought in now, 2 years? Rani Yahya's been active. He beat a guy recently in the second round by submission. I believe his name was. I'll find it out right now. Can't quite remember it. Rodriguez, I think his surname was. Another Rodriguez. Ray Rodriguez was his name. Second round arm triangle choke. Draw to Enrique Barzola. Close loss to Ricky Simone where he got rocked here and there, but still stayed in there for the distance and did well against Ricky Simone over the 3 rounds. Beat Luke Sanders. He's beat some decent opponents in his career, and I think he's going to go out there and work his grappling on Kyung-Ho Kang. I think it's going to be a first round to Kyung-Ho Kang, winning the first round, but then as the rounds go on, we see in Kyung-Ho Kang's fights, he gets very lazy on top. He starts shooting lazier takedowns that arguably he couldn't maybe get, but then he ends up on top anyway in like a weird scramble where they're both tired and they're both sloppy. I think Yahya's got the experience and the activity to be patient out there in the later rounds, win the grappling exchanges there. I think he loses the first on the feet and on the grappling maybe as well. Then in the second and third round, I think he's going to start to win the scrambles, reverse position, end up on top, take half guard, land total strikes, and win those rounds 29-28 unanimous decision for Rani Yahya. Kyung-Ho Kang gets lazy on top, lazy in the guard, lazy on the ground in the later rounds when he starts to slow down because of bad cardio. And I think that's where Yahya's going to take advantage, winning the last 2 rounds, 29-28. Moving on, up the card, Michael Chiesa versus Sean Brady. This is a great card, but the main event's shit. But this is a great main event. The people's main event, Michael Chiesa versus Sean Brady. People are picking Sean Brady. I'm going with another underdog. Michael Chiesa is going to beat Sean Brady. Are you not watching Sean Brady's fights? I understand, 14-0, prospect coming up, everyone's talking about him, he's got cool tattoos, I get it. Michael Chiesa's really good and arguably, like, with a couple of adjustments, is the winner against Luke Hay by rear naked choke in the first round. Like, he beat RDA. Like, there's different levels of wins. Sean Brady made the fucking Jake Matthews fight look closer than Michael Chiesa made his RDA fight look. Like, there's different levels here. If Sean Brady was, like, demolishing prospects on the come-up, like a Shavkat Rakhmonov or a Hamzat Chimaev, maybe I would say, you know what, Chiesa's probably had his time. He might lose to this guy. He's got good defense. He's got good grappling, good stand-up KO power. But Sean Brady does not have KO power. He doesn't really have great stand-up. He's not really that big compared to Michael Chiesa, and it sounds weird to say that because he is big. He's a big guy for welterweight, but Chiesa's just a fucking giant of a man. No idea how he made lightweight ever in his career without dying. He's got a 3.5-inch reach advantage to work with on the feet because this is going to be like a real weird fight on the feet if it does end up there. And Sean Brady's had trouble with certain opponents in his career, and I don't like to see a prospect have that kind of trouble. Like against Court McGee. I know Court McGee beat Robert Whittaker, and that's always the comeback when I say he had a close fight with Court McGee. But he doesn't look good against Jake Matthews in the first 2 rounds. Those are close rounds. They're really like weird rounds where Jake Matthews cracks him a couple of times and actually outlands him significantly in the second round as well. Then Sean Brady wins the third and gets to choke, I understand, and eventually gets the better of Jake Matthews, but that's Jake Matthews. Christian Aguilera was a replacement who beat Anthony Ivy. who jumped in on short notice to the UFC and got his debut win, and then you gave him to Sean Brady. Like, these aren't top talented prospects all on the come up. The Ismail Nurdiev win is a good win, but Ismail Nurdiev stuffed all the takedowns in the first round and won that first round on significant strikes by far. Brady eventually got the better of him in the second and third because Nurdiev started to slow down. But again, the Court McGee fight. First 2 rounds, the first round is Sean Brady's round for sure. The second and third round, there's arguments for McGee there. He didn't get his takedowns. He barely could get them. He was getting them stuffed. He couldn't get any control time in that fight. Man, I think Chiesa dunks Court McGee on his head and chokes him out in a round. I think he does that to Nurdiev as well. I think he does that to Jake Matthews. And I reckon he does it to Christian Aguilera. But Brady makes these fights close. And he's got a reach disadvantage. He's not as big. And he's coming off an injury as well. Let's not forget. Well, he did have his fight, but he had a foot injury before that. So that's always going to weigh in. But Chiesa's been active. Didn't really take any damage against Vicente Luque. Got choked out in the first round with a reversal. And then a Darce choke occurred. And I get it. But it's Vicente Luque. I'm going with Michael Chiesa here. I think they have a bit of a slow fight on the feet in the first round. Both guys landing big shots. I think Chiesa's going to win that fight on the feet in the first round, in my honest opinion. And then, because he showed improvements against Luque, he landed a couple of big shots there. And in the second round, I think Chiesa's going to start grinding on him. At the end of the first round, he'll start pushing him as well, trying to get him down against a cage. And Brady's going to be doing good defending, but then he'll start to tire a little bit, start to slow down, and Chiesa will keep pushing, keep shooting, keep re-engaging for a double leg, eventually get Brady to the ground in a second, land some big shots. And I think we're going to see like a late second round rear naked choke for Michael Chiesa. That's what I'm going to go with. Late second round rear naked choke for Michael Chiesa. He gets this one done. Moving on up the card. Ketlen Vieira versus Miesha Tate. I'm going with Miesha Tate as the favourite here. I reckon she's got this one in the bag. Ketlen Vieira's good, but we've seen in fights she lacks the hustle sometimes, especially against Yana Kunitskaya in her more recent performance. She went out there, she lacked the hustle a little bit, she let Yana Kunitskaya outland her, end up on top, land big shots there. She just didn't really want to work too much in the grappling situations, and she does slow down in her fights, even against Kat Zingano, if you'll remember. Kat Zingano was actually beating the shit out of Ketlen Vieira in the third round, after Ketlen Vieira had a good first 2, but the second round was quite close. Like, Ketlen Vieira has some good wins in her career. She got KO'd by Irene Aldana, I do believe, or did she KO Irene Aldana? It's one of the two of them. I believe she got KO'd by Irene Aldana. She did get KO'd by Irene Aldana in the first round. Never good to see someone get KO'd in women's MMA, but Irene Aldana does have some good power, so it's not like she's like completely glass-chinned or anything like that, because Aldana, I believe, is coming off a KO win against Yana Kunitskaya as well. So, the Eubanks fight again. Vieira started to slow down in the third round, and that's Ciara Eubanks. I think Miesha Tate is a level above that. Had a pretty close fight with Eubanks, lost the third round, started to slow down, started to give up some positions and take some beatings in that third round. I'm going to go with Miesha Tate here, and especially in a 5-rounder. I think they're going to have a high-paced fight for the first 2. Maybe Miesha Tate loses the first round. Maybe Miesha Tate wins the second round slightly. Then she starts to win the third. Then she ends up on top at the end of the third and starts beating up Ketlen Vieira. Then she starts ending up on top in the fourth round and starts beating up Ketlen Vieira. And I'm going to go with like a 4th round TKO to exhaustion mainly from Miesha Tate getting the win here with the back mount on top. Landing big shots on Ketlen, who's run out of energy. She's slowing down like she has done in previous fights. And Miesha Tate's got it done because somehow a woman who takes 2 years away from the sport and does nothing to do with training MMA is still quite top level and good for women's MMA, which doesn't make any sense, but it's women's MMA. Miesha Tate's an athlete, at least. She's in great shape, great condition. I think she's strong for that division. She's big for that division. So is Ketlen Vieira, but I think this is going to be a stalemate on the feet. Pretty even and back and forth. But Miesha Tate has the composure and championship experience and mentality to push in those later rounds of this fight, 3, 4, and 5, and start to make her openings, win her scrambles, end up on top and land her shots. I think she gets a 4th round TKO to ground and pound against Vieira. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.